what impact do you think the Beatles had on music as a whole?
They changed everything. And not only did they change everything about music, they changed everything about the culture. Everyone today, as we sit here today, no matter what your political beliefs, no matter what your background, no matter where you grew up, you have somehow been impacted by the Beatles. And I would tell you that even if you're a kid growing up and have never listened to a Beatles song yet, your life is different because of the Beatles. That's how big of an impact they had on a social level, musical level, political level. These guys changed the world, literally.
Do you see any artists nowadays that even come close to something like that?
No. No.
Who would be your ultimate artist that you would have inducted into the RockWalk that has not yet been inducted?
Well, The Doors should be here, for sure. On a personal level, George Thorogood. I think he really deserves it. George Thorogood and the Destroyers should be here. I don't know that the Stones are in yet. You know, there's a lot of people that we could talk about that should be in. I don't know if the Grateful Dead are in here yet.
Are you surprised at some artists being inducted and other ones have not yet been inducted, as far as artists that have been around for decades and made a mark years ago?
Yes, I am, you know, but I think that's probably, I don't know if that's a judgment call, if it's availability. I really don't know, because they never asked me. Well, that, you know, they have asked in the past a couple of times, but they've never taken my suggestion.
What's your most memorable induction to date?
That would be, there were two that come to mind. One, and interestingly enough, both of these are before my generation, but maybe that's why they meant so much to me. One was Carl Perkins. Now, Carl Perkins is a guy that I didn't know about until I got older and started looking into the history of rock and roll. It's the guy that wrote Blue Suede Shoes and Honey Don't and that kind of stuff. That was memorable. That was memorable because Carl Perkins came to the RockWalk with the belief that if one guy showed up with a Polaroid camera, he would be happy, because he didn't think anybody remembered him. And it was one of the largest crowds I'd ever seen. And he was so moved by that experience that he cried through most of it. And I was really touched by that. The audience really loved him. He was the nicest guy. He was so blown away to be thought of. And then he came back here into the back room of the Guitar Center and played. And just, this guy's in his late 60s, and people are rocking. He just rocked. And it was wonderful because it was just him and one of the employees here picked up a bass, and they made this great music together. The other one that was really important to me, well, first off, today was pretty important. Grace Slick was pretty damn important for me to be here. But also Willie Dixon and Bo Diddley. Again, two guys well before my generation, but Bo Diddley for what he has meant to rock and roll, and Willie Dixon because he's my very favorite blues writer. Willie Dixon wrote Backdoor Man. Willie Dixon wrote Little Red Rooster. He wrote literally hundreds and hundreds of songs that have been covered by rock and roll musicians. Led Zeppelin, The Doors, Cream, I mean, you can go on and on. Oingo Boingo covered a Willie Dixon song. And I knew him a bit. So that was a big one, to see that the RockWalk would recognize a guy like that, and not just like somebody who you would normally think of, but he really deserved to be recognized. And that also brings to mind George Martin, the Beatles producer, was honored here, and that was pretty cool too.
What's that feeling you get when you find out that, when you get a call that says the next induction is going to be Grace Slick? What kind of what kind of memories or feelings does that conjure up when you know that you are going to be the one presenting this next inductee?
It's a very good question. That's a very good question. I was very happy to hear that it was going to be Grace Slick, and I immediately started flashing on all the times I had seen the airplane, because I got to see him at the Fillmore. And I'd seen him many times over the years in many different locations, and I'd interviewed her many times over the years. So I had sat in a room with Grace for 2 or 3 hours going at it, you know, and always enjoyed the experience. I got nothing but great things to say about Grace Slick. So that was my first reaction. My next reaction was, I better do this right. You know, I better write something right and present it right, and I want this moment to be good for her.
Sort of do her justice.
Exactly, do her justice. Mm-hmm.
One more question.
I'm trying to think of what the next question's going to be.
No more questions.